everyone. Okay, so let's just jump right into the big fucking reveal of the chapter, which is that we learn the reason Bonnie is on Egghead Island is to take revenge on Vegapunk for turning her father into a cyborg, who we then learn her father is Bartholomew Kuma. And, you know, I did have an inkling of a thought that there was some sort of connection there after Bonnie disguised herself as the Queen Dowager of Sorbet Kingdom, but to learn Kuma is her father, it suddenly connects so many dots. But also with this reveal, it also raises a whole different slew of questions now. For example, what's the current status of Sorbet Kingdom itself? Because obviously this reveal confirms that Bonnie is princess of the Sorbet Kingdom, but with her being a pirate now, this would have to mean she's a disgraced princess, unless the kingdom is aware of her endeavors has allowed her to operate, but has allowed her to operate in such a manner by just separating themselves from the kingdom and just not making it known of Bonnie's connection to the kingdom, keeping her status as a princess secret in order to allow her to operate in the capacity she has in order to help save Kuma. That's kind of how I'm thinking it, and that's kind of how I'm thinking it because it would even give a lot more validity as to why she's so fervent into trying to save Kuma, obviously because she is her father, but because she's been allowed to operate because I think Sorbet Kingdom itself has just kept that connection in the dark. Now, with that said, it also raises the question of Sorbet Kingdom's relationship with the revolutionaries and Dragon, and what that relationship is. But regardless, this definitely puts the Sorbet Kingdom in the spotlight for a future arc, and the very real possibility of that. Honestly, with this whole reveal, it's kind of set up a whole fucking ton of shit that can be explored, and it just really makes me say that One Piece reaching its end is going to take a wee bit longer than 3 years. Oda talked about at this point, I don't trust anything Oda says when it comes to when One Piece is gonna end, because obviously when it comes to One Piece, the man just finds whole new narrative avenues in order to take the series. So I honestly, anytime he comes out, I'm gonna be taking it with the tiniest grains of salt, and anytime he says that it's gonna end this time, I take it with the tiniest wee bits of grain of salt at this point. And then even more than all of that though, I really want to know to what extent Bonnie's working with the revolutionaries at this point, because she mentioned having met Sabo, so because of that interaction, and probably because of their shared interest in Kuma, it appears like they're kind of working together, and she's acting as a pseudo-agent for the revolutionaries. But how far does that partnership go is what I'm left to wonder, unfortunately. With that said, apparently one of the other big things we learn in this chapter is that the girl we met isn't actually Vegapunk, and that Vegapunk had actually split himself into 6 people, and it's established after the fact that they're essentially clones, and if they die, then Vegapunk dies as well. And with Lucci and Kaku bounded for Egghead Island, this whole arc is already feeling like Punk Hazard on steroids, including how it's paced. If there's anything I'm shocked by with this arc right now, is that this is how quickly Oda has already gotten to the crux of the conflict. And I think part of that is because he has already done so much setup of who Vegapunk is and his influence in the world that it makes sense he wouldn't really need to do a whole lot to set this up. Now, with that said, I do have to admit I'm a little conflicted on learning all this. That the Vegapunk we meet is just one of 6 clones, because on one hand it does make sense Vegapunk would do this, because from what we've learned and what we know, the man does seem like a very cautious individual. So I doubt he'd actively show himself. He'd keep himself hidden away from anyone looking for him. But at the same time, at this point, I have to wonder if this whole thing with the clones is the closest we'll ever get to actually meeting Vegapunk, or if he'll still make an appearance this time. Like I have to assume it's the latter, especially so much set up around him in this arc. But with Oda's record of, I guess, cock teasing us with Vegapunk, I'm not entirely convinced either until we get a full-on actual reveal. With that said, I'm not gonna lie as well. For someone who's hailed as a genius scientist, the whole clones in concept feels like a stupid decision on Vegapunk's part. Like, I know from what we've seen, they're capable and can hold their own, but Vegapunk tying his life to them feels a little short-sighted on his part. Even if he did split them into 6 and to make it harder for people to kill him, I don't know. Just the whole thing just feels a little off. Like for someone who's hailed as a genius, this feels like a pretty bog standard like way to go about like making it hard for someone to kill you. And now with all that said, based on the brief exchange between Lucci, I want to talk about the brief exchange we get between Lucci, Kaku, and Stussy in this chapter, because one thing that stood out to me is I will be the most curious what Lucci's role in this arc is going to be, because one of the interesting things about his characterization this time around, especially in this chapter, is you do see him asking a few more questions. And while I have serious doubts that Lucci will be the farthest thing from an ally, unlike how Smoker was in Punk Hazard, like this is one of those little bits of characterization for Lucci, where I get the feeling we'll be seeing him act a little bit more autonomously, with a little bit more autonomy throughout the arc. Like he's not going to wholly act upon the orders, almost like he's not going to act wholly upon the orders given to him without doing a little bit of digging first, or trying to piece together every bit of information he can in order to make sense of what's going on. And that in itself does show growth on Lucci's part, that being defeated by Luffy did cause him to change ever so slightly, that even though he will still follow orders of the government and Celestial Dragons, he's entirely acting under the hardline belief that I carry out the order without question, which is funny how it feels like Kaku is the one who's adopted Lucci's old mantra now, and I'm just like genuinely curious as to where this arc is going to take Lucci and how Oda handles his character from here, because Lucci, for however much Lucci might act like the same person he always is, there is a little bit of character growth there, and it'll be curious to see how Oda takes advantage of that growth. And just how exactly he acts throughout this arc, I think is going to be my biggest question. And in general, I think this chapter had some of the most hilarious character interactions in my opinion. Like, we got the one I wanted the most, which is seeing Luffy and Bunny fight each other over food. But the one I really loved is seeing Frankie fanboy over Lilith and mistaking her for Vegapunk. Like, that whole thing just had me kind of laughing my ass off. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll, and just follow me around. Just follow me, guys. Dark Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, everyone.